Been following the news, you've been following this program for any number of weeks, we do have the results. We've been covering the Senate Special Election Senate District 16 race. Joe and I left here yesterday and went up to Russellville. And, of course, the results are in. And Breanne Davis last night defeated Bob Bailey, getting 55% of the vote to his 44% of the vote. A total of 7,715 people voted. Breanne Davis securing 4,264 votes, and Bob Bailey securing 3,451 votes. So, congratulations to Breanne Davis for winning this election. As I've looked at the numbers, I have, well, let me just say, I kind of feel like when all is said and done, we may call this the Democrat primary of 2018 in Senate District 16. When it's all said and done, we won't know these numbers for a week or two of how many Democrats exactly voted. But I think it's more than a few. We have obviously throughout this whole process documented evidence of this. Matter of fact, I was prepared for this outcome because Democrats right now see their policies under attack nationwide, not here in Arkansas, but nationwide. And so they are very motivated to play spoiler here. We have reports that Arkansas Tech University, in some capacities, in some classes, they were actually offering bonus points for those that went and voted and participated in the election. Now, I was a liberal in college. Most young people in college are liberals and Democrat voters. So, what do you think happened there? If you don't want that proof, or, that's just a report, we obviously have the other reports that we covered extensively. The liberal claiming she was a liberal while tearing up a Bob Bailey flyer and running off after she voted. We had people at the polls yesterday. I was at the polls yesterday, and it was good. I mean, there was a lot of good, positive support, but there was a lot of people pulling in to vote that had liberal stickers on, bumper stickers on the backs of their car. I mean, so it was obvious that Democrats were participating in this election. They participated the first time, and I think they were out in mass numbers. We can back that up, and we're going to get to the numbers here in just a minute. But if you want more proof, let's go to the Twitter. Let's go to the president of the Arkansas Tech Democrats, who's a college student, and this is the stuff he was tweeting last night. This was some initial results, but this is when they officially called the race for Breanne Davis when she had 3,600 votes. Now, of course, she ended up getting 42. Bob got 3,400. This guy's name is Justin Gunderman. Justin Gunderman is the president of the Arkansas Tech University Democrats. You see he's got a picture there with Democrat Clark Tucker. And he just writes, "Thank God." He retweets Austin Kellerman's tweet telling you what the numbers are. And he retweets, "Thank God." Interesting. Why would the president of the Arkansas Tech Democrats be so excited or, be giving praise to God because a Republican won in a Republican primary? That's very interesting. Circumstantial evidence, you guys make up your own mind. Then see his other tweet. This is earlier, before it was called. He's got a gif of Raven Simone chewing gum, looking very nervous. And he writes, "Me, an Arkansas Tech student, waiting on the results of the special election runoff to see if the GOP nominee will be a basic Republican who actually likes Arkansas Tech or a gun nut extremist." Okay. Again, why is the president of the Arkansas Tech Democrats so invested in this? Unless there is a coordinated effort among other Democrats and people at Arkansas Tech and other Democrats in Pope County and in District 16 to influence and play spoiler. Next tweet. A little arrogant relief there. You can see that tweet there. Is that Honey Boo Boo? Little Honey Boo Boo gif. Hey, bye-bye. Projecting that at Bob Bailey. And then next up we have interesting correspondence on Twitter among two Democrats. Justin Gunderman, again, the Arkansas Tech University president, excuse me, he is tweeting here in a conversation with State Representative Charles Blake. State Representative Charles Blake tweeted last night at 10:12, happy that the people of Pope County said no to ignorance, bigotry, and hate. Okay, so we have the Democrats now calling Bob Bailey once again a bigot. Charles Blake was actually used in that hit piece story 4 weeks ago where they criticized Bob Bailey because of where he went to high school and the type of mascot that they had back in the 70s that was not politically correct. Then they also criticized him because he one time had a rebel flag as a profile pic. Back when, of course, they were trying to remove Confederate battle flags because they believe that that will forever end disagreements among human beings. Obviously, the editing, the sanitization of our history, that was all involved there. Then, of course, he had a funny meme that he sent about Pine Bluff that he sent to his son who was a chaplain there.
No, I think someone sent it to him.
Or somebody sent it to him. That's right. Anyway, it doesn't even matter. There was a coordinated media hit job against Bob Bailey on 3 different national local affiliates. On local affiliates who are national, Fox, NBC, and ABC, I believe. And in parts of the state that had no business even covering it. I mean, it was clearly a planted story. And then, of course, you had the president of the Senate, Jonathan Dismayne, coming out against him. And so my point is this was a concerted effort by Asa Hutchinson. This election, I think you're going to find, people want, first of all, politicians want power. The average man doesn't. He just is running to represent his community. But politicians want power, and they're going to do whatever they can do to get it. All right? But this election, Asa Hutchinson and his machine, George Soros, this election and the community and the Republicans, the true Republicans in Senate District 16. And this is how we know. Go to the Ballotpedia. So if you look at this, Bob Bailey gets 4,264 votes. So Bob Bailey, Breanne Davis gets 4,264 votes. Bob Bailey gets 3,451. Okay. What is that? Joe, is that 800 votes? I wrote that down in there on that piece of paper. 813 votes. That's the difference between the two. All right. Interestingly enough, Senate District 16 has actually been through several special elections like the last 3 elections because the seat's been vacated. So they've gone through this really before. They really haven't had an actual I guess Greg Standridge, the late Senator Standridge, ran unopposed the last time. But before that, in 2015, the seat was vacated by Michael Lamoureux, now lobbyist, former Governor Hutchinson's chief of staff. He had left to go work for the governor as chief of staff, and that caused this vacancy. And so they had a 3-person race, right? And a 3-person race between Greg Standridge, Stan Berry, and Thomas Aiken. Thomas Aiken was out. He only got 11% of the vote. Greg Standridge won 47.8%. Stan Berry won 41.1%. A total of 4,440 people voted. Greg Standridge got 2,124. Stan Berry got 1,826. Okay, this is in 2015. But no one got to 51%. So they had to have a runoff election between Greg Standridge and Stan Berry. A total of 4,988 people turned out for that. Let me say that again. Back in 2015, when Greg Standridge was running against Stan Berry in Senate District 16, a total of 4,988 people, 88 Republicans, 4,988 Republicans turned out and cast their ballots, a majority of them, for Greg Standridge, 53.6% to 46.4%. 2,675 for Greg Standridge, 2,313 for Stan Berry. Greg Standridge was the senator, and of course, tragically, he passed away last year, and that's what brought us to this point. 7. How do you go? What happens? Somebody tell me. What is the difference in the exact same scenario? Special election, runoff election. 4,988 people turn out in 2015, but 7,715 turned out yesterday or over the last 2 weeks or the last week during early voting. What's the difference there? That's a massive amount of difference. See, because when you go back to the Secretary of State's website. When you look at that number right there. Look at 3,451. That's the amount of votes Bob Bailey got, and he lost. He got 3,004. Go back to the Ballotpedia. How much did Greg Standridge got? 2,675, and he won in 2015. So Bob Bailey's 3,451 is actually the most Republican votes in a runoff that a Republican's received. And I say that because I don't count what Breanne Davis has as a majority of Republicans. Well, maybe a majority of Republicans, but certainly not. There's a lot of Democrats in that vote. It's safe to say there's a lot of Democrats in that vote. There was a coordinated effort to do this. There's a coordinated effort to hijack the Republican primary, to George Soros this election. And I think the numbers are going to bear that out when you actually go line by line and you figure out, look, I was there. Joe, you were there. Last night we were at the Pope County election returns, and you could hear people saying, gosh, there's a lot of Democrats that turned out in this election. Over and over again. You kept hearing people. And we never got a number. I don't think they were keeping count, but they were aware. The people at that polling location were aware of the number of Democrats that were coming out. And there was other locations, smaller communities. And, you had Bob Bailey supporters who were there at those polling places, and they were getting the middle finger. And it was just the reports are just liberal after liberal after liberal pulling in the parking lot. So, just wanted everybody to know, politicians are going to do whatever they can to retain power to protect themselves. And the Liberty Machine, it goes on. The construction of the Liberty Machine continues. And the fact that they thought, listen, there's no pleasant way to take a loss. That's for sure, right? But I will tell you this. The Little Rock establishment, you know who really won yesterday? It wasn't Breanne Davis. It was Blue Cross Blue Shield. It was a $2 billion windfall of your taxpayer money going to a private company. You can't even afford your insurance payments. That's the system that's going to be supported here. But I just wanted you to know, they thought this was just going to be a coronation. Originally, this was just going to be the coronation of Breanne Davis. Guess what? We made them pay for it. We made them actually have to get involved. We made them have to expose themselves. We made them have to cater to Democrats to win. Knowledge is power. Information is power. We have more of it now. We know the lengths these people are willing to go. And they don't care. I think history is going to show that Breanne Davis won a Democrat primary last night. I think history is going to show that Bob Bailey actually won a Republican race, a Republican primary. But, I mean, obviously I know they're both running as Republicans. But you understand what I'm saying. I think the numbers are going to bear that out. How do you go from, just under 4,000, just under 5,000 votes in 2015 to almost 8,000 people turned out for this election? How does that happen? What's the wild card there? Now Joe said when I walked in, I told him those numbers this morning, and Joe said, well, Donald Trump. That's why. Because the Democrats are so, they hate Donald Trump so much that they are mobilizing, and they are now ready to basically infiltrate Republic. Now, the Democrats in this state are a minority. The Democrats in this state are a sinking ship. A lot of these Democrats have jumped over from their sinking ship of the Democrats and changed their name, and they've been, they call parlay, and then we make them crew members for some reason. Not only crew members, we'll make them heads of our committees for no reason. Because the Republican Party of Arkansas, the establishment, are making former Democrats heads of committees because they switched to Republicans, to be Republicans. I mean, it's crazy. But that's what's going on here. What does the Republican Party stand for? That is the question that should be on everyone's mind as we come out of this particular special election. The primary season is not over. We've got a lot of other elections. You've got, for example, the governor's pick, James Sturch, is going to be challenging Senator Linda Collins Smith. You've got the open Jake File seat, right? You've got Brian King and Bob Ballinger going to square off. There's a lot of other stuff going on between. Obviously, you have Jan Morgan and Asa Hutchinson squaring off as well. But what does the Republican Party stand for? That's the question going forward. What do you think it stands for? Let me know. 870-275-9799. The Liberty Machine rolls on, folks. Keep your heads up. Back in just a moment.
In Arkansas, every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure the life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Gene on Facebook brings up an excellent point. Gene on Facebook, Democrats elected the first Republican Speaker of the House since Reconstruction. He's talking about Davy Carter back in 2012 or 2013. And Democrats just selected the Republican nominee for state senator. And he says, "Hail Czar Hutchinson." That's an excellent point, Gene. Yeah, this is something that we're having to. This is something that I think it's a transition. I mean, we've said this for a long time. I mean, at the very least, there's a lot of damage I think Governor Hutchinson is doing to this state, but a lot of damage he's doing to the party in terms of the idea of limiting the government, even though he's now trying to pivot and he's now trying to say he's for limiting government, by the way. Have you heard about this? That in and of itself is a victory. Governor Asa Hutchinson attacked Conduit co-founders. I mean, he attacked Joe Maynard yesterday at the Political Animals Club outright. We have there's an article written about it, Michael Wickline. We'll have that for you later in the broadcast. You're not going to want to miss this. Matter of fact, I'm going to go frame this article. I really am. That's how hilarious it is to me. It's good though. I mean, because it's for some reason it's weird. I think it's something's going on. And we have this really quick, Arkansas Online reporting about Rusty Cranford trying to kill somebody, trying to hire somebody to murder somebody. And the Philadelphia Inquirer, they're now looking into this too because they're like, hey, wait a second. Some Arkansas lobbyist tried to murder one of our New Jersey lobbyists? Well, it's Philly.com, so it's not quite New Jersey, but you get the point. It's up there in the New England northeastern area. They write, Jeremy Roebuck, staff writer for Philly.com, a former political strategist for the U.S. Congressman Bob Brady, was targeted in a murder-for-hire plot to stop him from cooperating with an ongoing corruption probe in Arkansas and Missouri, federal authorities said. Prosecutors detailed the previously undisclosed scheme to silence Donald D.A. Jones of Willingboro in federal court filings late Monday in Missouri. They say Milton Russell Rusty Cranford, a prominent Arkansas lobbyist, tried to set up Jones' slaying earlier this year. Cranford, 56, was arrested last month in Bentonville, Arkansas, carrying a .45 caliber Derringer-style pistol and $17,700 in cash that authorities say he intended to pay to a contract killer. He needs to go away, the lobbyist purportedly said in a caught-on-tape conversation with Jones, miming a shooting motion with his hands. The transcript states Cranford added, he needs to be gone. Folks, the Arkansas corruption is about to be laid bare. Mark my words. We have to take a break. Back in a minute.
Well, as you can see, we received over 400 healthcare complaints last year, so it may be that someone has called claiming to be able to do something with their healthcare that they didn't have the authority to do, to give them services, provide services, help them with their insurance, help them with their prescription medications that they were not able to do. So there's not any one particular area that these 415 complaints came in, but if you have a question on your healthcare, how it's been handled, give us a call. We also, on that note, Paul, excuse me, we just launched an investigation into what's called a pharmacy benefits manager, who is, for all intents and purposes, the middleman between the insurance company and our local pharmacies. And they were just they've been driving our local pharmacies out of business,
yes.
It seems like, or trying to, by such low reimbursement rates. And it's hurting not only our local pharmacies, our pharmacists who we know and love and trust and we've gone to for years, but it also hurts Arkansans because what they are doing is essentially eliminating our options in healthcare by saying that this person is this pharmacy is a preferred provider, you have to use this or this mail order, and it's taking options away from Arkansans. It's raising the prices. It's driving local businesses out, and so we are investigating with these pharmacy benefit managers on behalf of Arkansas.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that because it's a huge deal. I mean, I think everybody across the state now knows PBMs, or more people do now than they did, 4 weeks ago, and what this is about. And so I'm glad that you're investigating that. And I think this is also I want to pair this with my next question, because you have joined in a lawsuit as the Attorney General of the state of Arkansas, has joined with other states to try, to take to the Supreme Court once again to find Obamacare unconstitutional. Now, that would, in the Arkansas Times reported, that would also mean, if it went away, that it all goes away, meaning Medicaid expansion, it all goes away, and that includes, our program Arkansas Works. But when I talk to these pharmacists, Attorney General Rutledge, one of the reasons that they're upset is because of Blue Cross Blue Shield, and because of the fact that they are in this contract that no one can see with CVS Caremark. And when you start taking Arkansas taxpayer dollars, both state and federal, going to fund the welfare program for the Medicaid expansion that goes directly to Blue Cross Blue Shield, a lot of pharmacists are seeing that as their own taxpayer dollars now going to fund a system that is putting them out of business. So talk a little bit about, so I'm glad that you're investigating the PBMs, but talk about your motivations behind joining with this lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of Obamacare.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head in terms of that Medicaid expansion.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back. We want to thank the great Patriots VAC 746 for sponsoring this next segment. They are on a mission to educate Arkansans, really, on their Second Amendment rights, specifically with Act 746 and the fact that Arkansas is a constitutional carry state. You can find more on Facebook if you just search for Patriots of Act 746. That's Patriots of Act 746. It is a closed group, but ask to be a member. 12,000 strong, that group. Very educated on Second Amendment rights. And we'll hear more to talk more about that. We've got Mr. Tim Loggins back with us this morning, bright and early. Tim, welcome.
Good morning, Paul.
Yes, sir. Good morning to you. So how are things going? How you been doing?
Well, I'm blessed. The Lord's treating me better than what I deserve, probably. Our movement's going well. The Northeast Arkansas chapter is going well. Family life is good. I'm blessed.
Good. Yeah, I think I would agree with that as well, definitely. So talk just a little bit about, we've got the Patriots VAC 746, and you guys are doing great work. One of the problems, I think, and I know there was a lot of, let's just take, for example, the concept of open carry, which is a real thing in Arkansas now, thanks to Act 746. In the beginning, in the infantile stages when people were figuring out what this new law change was all the way back in 2013, there was an effort, a grassroots effort, to contact local law enforcement and actually go on demonstrations and walks. The people would go and they would walk downtown, open carrying their firearms, trying to educate people about what the law was. And that's true, right? I mean, did you participate in any of that stuff, or did you know anyone who did?
I knew some folks that did. I didn't do any walks at that time. I was still employed in law enforcement at the time.
Okay. So I guess the reason I'm bringing that up is this was an effort to try to unify the state, to try to educate people as to what the law was, which was, basically possession of firearms or a weapon have been decriminalized. The burden of proof is so high to convict somebody of just merely possession of a weapon. You have to be able to convict them of unlawful intent while carrying, which means you have to be able to read their thoughts, or you have to have someone dumb enough to text somebody, I'm on my way to kill you with my gun while I'm open carrying. That's going to be hard to prove. My point is there at the time it was hard. There was a patchwork of laws. You had some law enforcement heads that just didn't want to recognize it, We have the Arkansas State Police that still are allergic to this in many ways. I think that's slowly, going away. But with this idea of having a patchwork of laws, depending on where you are located in the state of Arkansas, is not good government, and it's not, I think, what anybody, whether you're against the Second Amendment or not, I think everybody wants to know within reason how they're going to be treated by law enforcement and what freedoms they have or what they're going to be arrested for. You agree with that, Tim?
I agree that was the initial response by law enforcement, and it's still the response of the state police to some extent. Honestly, Paul, our governor has made us digress just a little bit on that. His recent opinion to the state police says it's up to the individual county prosecutor on whether to charge or not, and that's actually contrary to Arkansas law. We have a preemption law in Arkansas. The law should be consistent all the way across the state, and the prosecutors don't get to choose, depending upon the area, whether they're prosecuted or not. So we had some false information by the governor that's, I don't know if I want to say it's made us take a step back, but it's like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I set it up with the people who were going on these open carry marches all the way back from 2013, 2014, trying to educate, trying to not have a patchwork or a kind of a very arbitrary enforcement of the law depending on which county you're in or which city you're in. That was the effort of these marches. That was the effort of these open carry walks. That's what they were trying to do, raise awareness and get local law enforcement on board with the changes, because the media sure didn't want to champion what had happened. They weren't doing a good job unless it was mildly controversial. And so this was the effort. And so what I would say is I would take it and say I think Asa, with his stance, is actively working against the efforts of grassroots people who have been trying to change their government and get their local officials to be made aware of what the law actually says. And it did change back in 2013. And I think it's a shame when he says it's up to your local prosecutor as to whether or not, check if you want to open carry, check with your local prosecutor. Well, what kind of Wild West government are we running here? And I throw that in their face because I know they're the ones that say if we have guns, it'll be the Wild West. No, I'm talking about what kind of, we need to have a reasonable expectation that government's going to work for the people. And that means we need to know if we're going to be charged with a crime for exercising our rights to defend ourselves by open carrying. And the law provides that you can open carry. And so why would I need to check with the prosecutor? Why wouldn't the governor come out and say, well, of course, I know he's protecting the Arkansas State Police and that all that revenue they get from the concealed carry permits. But what I guess I would think, within reason, anyone would think that is just not good government. You don't want to treat citizens unequally based on where they live.
Paul, I don't know the governor. I haven't met him. I can only go on his public statements. He on more than one occasion he has called the Second Amendment a privilege and not a right. And let's keep in mind that a privilege can be granted and a privilege can be revoked. So he truly believes that government has the authority to grant or not someone the ability to carry a weapon. So I would think his opinions and what he's doing, he's consistent in what he believes, and he's actually trying to circumvent the laws that are on the books right now, and trying to get what he wants as opposed to what the law says.
I think you're definitely right. So where do you think we go from here, and just in terms of this impasse? The highest elected office in the land has essentially said, is actively working, I think, against the grassroots who've tried to bring public attention to this change, and it's been since 2013. By the way, we've had this. What happens here? At some point, I just don't see how they can. And see, the prosecutors, Tim, keep dropping these cases. They're actually taking. It would actually be good. It'd be a waste of time, but you could make the argument that it's a waste of time if you know you're not going to get a conviction to waste the court's time. But, I mean, if there was a judge that would rule on this, if some prosecutor would try to charge somebody with the possession of a weapon under this statute, and the judge says, no, sorry, I mean, that would set some sort of precedent that might actually help to solidify this. But it's never gotten to that point, has it?
The prosecutors know the law, and they're not going to take a case to court that they're going to lose. They're not going to waste the money. They're not going to risk the bad press. So they understand the law, and what winds up is you have low information voters, as some people call them, that don't know their rights and don't know the law, and so they're afraid to exercise their rights. Yes, we would love a case in court. There's been several of us that have almost begged prosecutors and law enforcement, please arrest me. And as soon as they see that you know what the law says, they quickly steer away from that. No officer wants to arrest someone and have it thrown out. Now, they will say they'll arrest you, but when it comes right down to it, that really doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they certainly that's what's sad is we're not actually getting the end result, because they certainly make the people who get arrested, they make their lives miserable for a time, but eventually the prosecutor just throws the court case. I mean, I'm sorry, does not pursue the charges.
And we haven't had a successful. We don't have a precedent yet. It hasn't went to court. We've been asking for it, but we can't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason for that, because the law is very clear. If you don't have unlawful intent to employ that weapon against the person, you're not guilty of carrying a weapon. Mm-hmm. And I'll go even further. We still have a $1,000 bounty at Patriots of Act 746 for anyone that can show us the penalty for carrying concealed without a permit.
Yeah.
Or show us where the law says you have to have a permit.
And so,
it doesn't exist.
Senator Linda Collins Smith did fire off a letter to the Attorney General Leslie Rutledge asking to see where the penalty is for carrying, right, without a permit, correct?
That's correct, Paul. And I'm actually a little upset. The Attorney General was on your program last week, and I was hoping she would use that opportunity to at least preview what she's going to do with that request for an opinion, and she didn't mention it at all. And I'm hoping that I'm hoping that she goes on and issues the opinion before May 22nd, and she doesn't sit on it until after the primary.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was I kind of dropped the ball there. I didn't ask the question. I should have. I'll be honest, it just slipped my mind. We were doing that interview focused. I was focused more on the PBMs and the the Arkansas works. Well, the Obamacare lawsuit, because I thought it was interesting where ASA is fighting tooth and nail to keep a socialist health care program from a socialist president. And yet another constitutional officer, Leslie Rutledge, is signing on to a lawsuit with other states that would actually end that program if we won. So
that's encouraging to me.
Do what?
That's encouraging to me, because that sets the stage for her to issue a good, clean opinion. I'm just hoping she does it before the primaries. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and call on her to please issue that opinion and get it out as quickly as possible. I know she's a good public servant, and I think her heart's in the right place, and now is the time for her to make sure that the law is clear.
Yeah. And
give a good, clean opinion.
Yeah, and so, again, for folks who are not listening, this may be news to you, but, back in, was it the 90s, Tim, they started issuing those concealed carry permits back in the 90s, right?
That's correct.
And essentially, we don't need those, and yet we've been conditioned psychologically to assume that we have to have those in order to carry a weapon.
Well, and what a lot of folks don't know is, there's 12 states right now that are constitutional carry. 11 of those have concealed weapon permit programs because it's good for reciprocity when you're traveling out of state. It quickens the process for purchasing a weapon from an FFL. There's a reason for a permit if you choose to get it, but you don't need one in Arkansas. If you're going to be carrying in Arkansas, you can carry open and concealed. There's no law you're going to break if you do that.
And see, this is it shouldn't be provocative, but it is, and this is the great work that the Patriots Fact 746 are doing. You guys are, again, on a mission to educate about what the law actually says, and I so appreciate you coming on the program, Tim. And before we go, you guys have there's a Jan Morgan event coming up. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The Patriots of Act 746, the Northeast Arkansas chapter, we started it around the end of November of 2017, and we're up over 600 members right now.
Wow.
And we're going to go ahead and sponsor a dinner with Jan here in Randolph County coming up on the 16th. It's going to be in Randolph County at the Christopher Corp building, and the address is 128 Mockingbird Road, Pocahontas. We're going to have barbecue butt sandwiches and all the fixings, and it's $10 a person or $15 a couple. All the proceeds that we get from that's going to go to Jan for governor. Seating is limited, so I would encourage everyone to call 870-215-3726. We are selling tickets at the door, but get your name on the list. That way you make sure you don't get turned away.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's in Pocahontas, and that's I guess that's on Friday, right?
That's on Friday the 16th at 6 p.m.
All right.
Jan's going to be the keynote speaker, and folks will have a chance to hear what she's going to do for the state. And let's be honest, there's a clear difference. If we're just talking 2A, Second Amendment, there's a clear difference between Jan and Asa. There's a clear choice, and we're at Ronald Reagan said we're at a time of choosing. We're very close to losing our Second Amendment rights because we're not being active as a population. And it's time, if you want to keep your rights, we're going to need to elect Jan Morgan. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's on a lot of issues. I'm glad you bring up specifically the Second Amendment, but there's so much pushback from the establishment, Tim, and it's all because we don't agree. We just simply don't agree with the way they're doing things, and we want to hold people who have the power to take our money, to take our guns, and take our freedom accountable. And there is a massive negative response right now by those in power because you are speaking the truth. This program is speaking the truth. And, people complain about a negative atmosphere, but that's the negative atmosphere is not us speaking the truth. It's their response to the truth that's creating a negative atmosphere. So I think that's funny. But I'll give you the last word.
If we don't have the Second Amendment, if they can take our Second Amendment rights, then they can take any right they want. It really is that simple. Now, there's a lot of other issues. We've increased spending in Arkansas almost, $600 billion in 4 years.
$600 million.
Asa never met a tax that he didn't like. Cradle-to-grave tires, gas tax. We can go on and on about increasing taxes, increasing spending, out-of-control government. But you know what? If you're an Arkansan and you believe in the Second Amendment, you've got a clear choice. Mm-hmm. And let me say this. I feel for Bob Bailey and what happened down there, but, I heard a quote once that said that we get the government that we deserve. That means we've got to get up, go out to the polls, and vote. It's not enough to just talk about it. You got to get up off the couch and go out and vote.
Yeah.
You got to go to the polls.
That's exactly right. Tim Loggins, I appreciate it with Patriots Fact 746. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Paul.
Folks, if you want more information, you just got to search them on Facebook, Patriots of Act 746, and you'll see the group there. If you want to know more about what we talked about and want to know specifics, you want to see the statutes for yourself, that's where you need to go. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. That quote there goes out to Bob Bailey. We got to take a break. Back in just a moment.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, Contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
This is ASA News, The Parrot. With breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. I'm Bob Baloney. There are reports circling around from politicians who are in the know, and the same phrase keeps being used. That phrase is new revenue generation. Let's go to our reporter on the ground from the Capitol, Haley Hogwash. Haley?
Thanks, Bob. Yes, it seems the more politicians I talk to, the more I hear the phrase new revenue generation. We're trying to figure out exactly what that means, but you can rest assured it will be good for the people of Arkansas.
Haley, it certainly sounds like something good. I like how the phrase uses the word generation. That makes me think this has got to be doing something positive for our children in the future. Haley?
Yes, Bob, some new developments. I've just been speaking to some people who are here and are not politicians, and they tell me the phrase new revenue generation is actually code for a new tax.
Oh, my. Well, if this is true, Haley, that would add to a growing list of new taxes that have barely made any headlines at all, so it's best not to discuss them here on ASA News, The Parrot.
Yes, Bob, I know it's sure to make government officials angry that their phrasing of the new revenue generation has been changed by the people and called a tax increase.
I would expect an announcement from Mother Government soon to set the record straight. What is the new tax? Revenue generation, Haley?
Well, this new tax, a new revenue generation would add to a growing list. First, there was a revenue generation on movies, books, and songs that people download using the internet. And next, there was the tax increase. I'm sorry, Bob, the new revenue generation on all purchases made using the internet. And now I'm told this new revenue generation is a tax on the people's patience.
I realize the people don't like it, Haley, but specifically, what is the new tax? Revenue generation.
No, Bob, I'm telling you, according to the activists here at the Capitol who have gathered and are listening to some radio broadcast, the revenue generation is literally taxing the patience of the people of Arkansas. I'm told the less patience you have with the government,
The government better not tax our patience.
the more they will tax your patience and the more money you will owe at a later date. I'm also told the collection method on taxing your patience will be decided in a newly formed multicolored ribbon task force.
How taxing.
PHP Parody.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back to the program. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for being with us. Let's see. I guess the election in Senate District 16 is over. If you are just joining us, Breanne Davis defeating Bob Bailey 55% to 44%. A total of 7,715 people voted. Bob Bailey receiving 3,451. Breanne Davis 4,264. Now, we compared these numbers to what happened in 2015 with the exact same situation, special election, then a runoff. in a Republican primary, and only 5,000 people voted. What happens? How do 7,007, almost 8,000 people vote in this election? It's crazy, right? We've documented the Democrats. We documented that you have the mainstream media, you have the Marble Palace establishment, you have Governor Asa Hutchinson, and you have the Democrats. That's right, the Democrats. The Democrats were out in force yesterday. The numbers are going to bear that out. And this election, ladies and gentlemen, was George Soros. I'm telling you, there was a mobilization, there was coordination, and there was folks who, I mean, I'm telling you, the Democrats are a sinking ship in Arkansas, and but they're mobilized because, I mean, they want to be relevant. They're tired of losing. They think Donald Trump is the worst thing that's ever happened to this country, and so you go look. The head of the can you throw that up there again, real quick? This is the head of the Arkansas Tech Democrats. Arkansas Tech. There are reports that professors were giving bonus points for students who go and vote. Go to the first one. Start the first one. Now maybe go to the second one. Okay, so you have me, an Arkansas Tech student, waiting on the results of the special election runoff to see if the GOP nominee will be a basic Republican who actually likes Arkansas Tech or a gun nut extremist. That is a guy by the name of Justin Gunderman. He is the president of the Arkansas Tech University Democrats. So you have a Democrat here making a conscious decision to vote for what he calls a normal Republican, a basic Republican, or a gun nut extremist. Now, if you look at the Republican Party platform, you just got to look at the platform. If you go down the Republican Party platform and you agree with that platform, you would be considered an extremist by any Democrat. But if you're a basic Republican, I guess, what does that mean? A basic Republican. That means that you're not really a Republican. It doesn't mean anything good for conservatism, I'll tell you that much. But hey, it's I will tell you this. I bet there's some small business owners in Senate District 16 that are waking up this morning and they're kind of shocked that Bob Bailey didn't win. I cannot tell you how, when I was waving signs all day and my face is windburned, my lips are chapped, and that's just because government and liberty has to be tended to. I'm glad to do it again. I can't tell you how many, any person who's in trade, any person who's blue collar, any person who has like a business logo on their truck, I mean, they were huge Bob Bailey supporters because they recognized that small business is being crushed in this state. I mean, it was amazing, right, Joe? Wasn't it amazing how much support there was? But when 1,000 Democrats turn out, to vote in a Republican primary, well, this is what you get. Folks, we got one more hour you do not want to miss coming your way next.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
And those reimbursement rates are really what brought the issue of our pharmacists and pharmacy benefit managers to a head over the last few months. It's been trickling over the last several years, but it really brought to a head of last month. In terms of the lawsuit, we joined a 20-state lawsuit at the beginning of last week, I believe, so it's about 10, 11 days old, against the Affordable Care Act, commonly referred to as Obamacare. And we have argued for years that Obamacare is unconstitutional, that the federal government does not have the power to force citizens to buy insurance that they don't want and they can't afford. And so the case that the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, handed down, which is called NFIB versus Sebelius, was the earlier case in Obamacare. And it was a very narrow approval, if you'll recall, of that lawsuit. And Chief Justice John Roberts, he really stretched the law to save Obamacare by characterizing the individual mandate as a tax. Well, fast forward to the Trump administration and the tax reforms that were passed, the tax cuts that were passed right before Christmas of this year, and those tax cuts eliminated the tax penalty associated with individual mandates. So therefore, it's our argument that the court's 5-4 decision to uphold the individual mandate as a tax is no longer valid. Essentially, the crutch that Chief Justice John Roberts gave Obamacare has been eliminated, and it's no longer there. So the mandate can no longer be considered a tax. The taxing power given to the federal government by the Constitution can no longer justify the Obamacare mandate. So we're essentially arguing that now that has been removed, that the Affordable Care Act cannot stand on its own because it will not have the votes of the United States Supreme Court to be upheld, because that's the one. Chief Justice John Roberts voted with the 4 liberal judges at the time to uphold the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, and
and now this is not something I want Arkansans to know, that these lawsuits, as they well know, but just to remind them, so that way you mentioned the Arkansas Times and their scare tactics, that everybody's going to lose insurance. That is not the case, but these lawsuits are going to take months, perhaps even a couple of years to sort out, but definitely months to sort out. It's very unlikely that this court case is going to make its way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, going through the District Court, 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, or rather the 5th Circuit, because we filed in Texas, and so make its way up to.
It's going to be a long process, and of course, there's always going to be the people that are going to say, if that were to be found unconstitutional, there would be legislation to try to, mitigate the damages and stuff like that. With what you're saying, and that should be what happens. Is that the Congress should decide how to address this problem, just as we have with regard to the DACA program. And last fall, a group of states and AGs, and Arkansas was part of that, said, that the previous administration had overreached, had gone beyond its scope, and that Congress needs to fix this. And that's what we're saying again, is that this law was unconstitutional. Yeah.
And so if the courts find it unconstitutional, Congress needs to be the ones to fix it, not the court, not the executive branch, but rather Congress needs to fix it.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you signing on to this lawsuit, because Arkansans, I don't think they like Obamacare. I don't think they have from the beginning. I don't think it's gotten better. Over the years, it's been really a complete disaster. And so I know the majority of Arkansans are appreciative of what you're doing, signing on with these other states in this lawsuit. Back real quick, if we can just back up to the PBM issue one more time. One of the things that the pharmacists are saying is that they want transparency. So it's a difficult thing. They want transparency in what the contracts and the agreements are. And of course, CVS, Caremark, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they're going to say, no, that's proprietary, that's private, these are our contracts, the public can't see them. Of course, if the public saw them, I think they would see some very egregious arrangements. So how does that work, when you're going to have contracts, but then at this point, though, we're talking about taxpayer dollars, and it seems like with health care, it's getting harder and harder to find out where the government ends and where the private company begins.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Oh, my goodness. You should have seen Joe yesterday. Joe, you were flipping that sign like a guy trying to sell gold. Like, we buy gold, or come buy a new mattress. Discounted Queen mattresses. You were doing great. Joe was holding the Bob Bailey sign, and he did a great job. We were waving it. It was a huge one. It was like an 8x4 or something? Anyway, folks, welcome to the program. If you're just joining us, we spent all hour analyzing, or most of the hour analyzing the Arkansas election results from special election, the runoff in Senate District 16. Breann Davis defeating Bob Bailey 55-44. 7,715 people turning out and voting, which is ridiculously high. The reports coming in all day of the liberals or the people coming in, and I think they did it during early voting mostly, but they came in all day with these liberal bumper stickers on the backs of their cars. We were looking at them, and that was not a good sign. We could tell. But then there was also a lot of positive support. You know, we basically, the title of Hour One's podcast is "Did District 16 Get George Soros?" And if you look at the 5,000 or so Republicans that are typically turn out in an election like this one. And we have 2015, there was one just like this with a special election and then a runoff special election to fill this particular Senate seat. You look at 5,000 people that show up. Right now, almost 8,000 people showed up for this one. Bob Bailey got 3,451 votes, okay, and he lost. Greg Standridge won this seat in 2015, the late Senator Greg Standridge, with 2,600 votes. What's the difference there? And the difference is the Democrat Party. And our reports of Arkansas Tech giving bonus points for students that go and participate. This was an effort to, and you know what, we can get into an open primary discussion, but that's the long game. I mean, yeah, do we need close primaries in Arkansas? Absolutely we need close primaries, but that's not, the leadership's not going to go for that for this very reason. Blue Cross Blue Shield now continues for sure. They've got it solidified. And another year of $2 billion windfalls to them, right? The Little Rock establishment model is very happy. Now, they thought it was going to be a coronation. They thought it was just going to be easy, and conservatives, limited government conservatives, made the establishment work for it. But we know the lengths that they're willing to go, and they're perfectly willing to use the mainstream media, as they did, to attack true conservative candidates, to attack grassroots funding efforts of actually, giving people a chance to not be beholden to the Little Rock establishment and the Marble Palace lobby. The court, we should start calling it a court, as in like a king's court. Basically, these lobbyists are court members of a kingdom, and they reside at the Palace of Marble. The phone number, 870-275-9799. That's the telephone number. Now, in the midst of all of this, we were out in Russellville yesterday. I started getting text messages. You guys are going to want to hear this. I started getting text messages of people saying, I'm getting these polls. I'm getting these phone calls, and they're polling me about Asa Hutchinson. What is going on? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. Asa Hutchinson has a lot of money, and for some reason, he decided to attack the Conduit organizations yesterday at the Political Animals Club. Very bluntly, it was the best case of projecting his own flaws against. And he even mentioned the media arm. He mentioned this program without actually mentioning it. We'll get to his quotes here in a minute, but this was sent to me. This is part of a telephone survey Asa Hutchinson is paying for going around the state. Take a listen.
This has happened, and he's been in office this whole time, and none of this has happened. So why him saying it would make me vote for him again?
Governor Hutchinson worked to reform Medicaid expansion in Arkansas and recently worked with the Trump administration to implement work requirements for the folks to receive insurance as part of the Medicaid expansion. Would that make you more or less likely or no different to vote?
No different, because he didn't reform Medicaid expansion, he changed the name.
being elected governor of the state of Arkansas has seen over 60,000 new jobs created. Would that make you more or less likely or no different?
No different, because we would vote for Asa Hutchinson on a dare.
Wow.
I'm going to read you a few statements. If you knew the statement to be true, tell me whether it would make you more or less likely to vote for Jan Morgan. Jan Morgan banned anyone who is a Muslim from her gun range in Hot Springs.
What is this? Oh my gosh.
This is the Republican Party survey trying to make sure that Asa Hutchinson sounds good in a survey.
That's exactly
This is the most
That's what this
ridiculous
is.
thing ever. I'm so sorry,
That
ma'am.
would make no difference.
Jan Morgan called the victims of Hurricane Katrina leftovers and dependence on government handouts.
What? Go.
Get out. No, that wouldn't make me any less likely.
Wow, they're worried about Jan Morgan,
Jan
aren't they?
Morgan has been registered to vote in Arkansas since 1998, but did not vote in a Republican primary until 2014.
Neither did I.
I'm going to ask you a few more questions. Which political party are you affiliated? Democrat, Republican, Independent?
The Republican.
If you were to label yourself, would you say you were liberal, moderate, or conservative?
Conservative.
Regarding the issue of abortion, would you say that you are pro-life or pro-choice?
Pro-life.
Do you consider yourself an evangelical or a born-again Christian?
Yes.
Do you favor or oppose the goal of the National Rifle Association?
Favor.
Which one of the sources do you trust to get news from? TV, newspaper, social media, church, school, word of mouth?
What a detailed survey.
A little bit of all of it.
Yeah.
Very little of any of that. That's.
Which one of the following social media platforms do you use most often? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, email?
Facebook.
How often would you say you watch Fox News? Never, occasionally, or every day?
Occasionally.
How often would you say you listen to national conservative talk radio like Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, or Mark Levin?
A lot. Every day and then some.
How often would you say you listen to local conservative talk radio?
Once a week probably.
Who is the one local talk radio host that you listen to most often?
Paul Harrell.
H-A-R-R-O-L?
E-L.
Yeah.
H-A-R-R-E-L?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Okay, and that's all the questions that we have on
All
our
right,
survey.
so this,
Thank you
okay,
for
so
your
what this
time.
was,
Have a good
we had
day.
a listener that sent this to us. They sent this to us. This is Governor Hutchinson, and he is putting out a poll, presumably, of basically like if you knew that Asa Hutchinson successfully landed a plane on water and saved hundreds of lives, would that make you less likely or more likely to vote for him? Wow, really, telegraphing the attacks to come on Jan Morgan in a Republican primary. My goodness. And if you look at what happened with District 16 and the Democrats that voted in District 16, I know the Democrats have a primary for governor, but I think we can expect the Democrats to, I don't know. I mean, they like his policies, okay? And it's man, the state of Arkansas. Let me just tell you this. I mean, what does it mean to be a Republican in Arkansas now? I have no idea. Well, I mean, I could give you, it's negative, but I think at a bare minimum, any hope of reform and reforming Arkansas and the reforms that people have been voting for when they vote for Republicans, any hope of those being implemented in any significant or measurable way is on pause right now. And it's been on pause since the governor's been in office, but it's officially on pause. If he's going to use the liberal media to attack true conservatives, if he's going to go after true conservative incumbents, if he's going to utilize the Democrats, then I mean what do we do? Honestly, what do we do? Where do we go from here? Now we'll be giving you the answers, as time moves forward. But man, what kind of questions are those? And why all of a sudden do you want to know which local talk radio host people are listening to? Now that's a follow-up question, by the way. Because if you answer, do you listen to national talk radio? And the answer is no, okay. But if the answer is yes, okay, do you listen to local talk radio? Yes. If the answer is no, it goes away. The next question, you don't get the next question. But if the answer is yes, you do get the next question. The progression goes, okay, which local talk radio host do you listen to? Anyway, score one for Conduit News Radio. We've at least made the survey. Apparently, ASA is very concerned about this program. And I'd heard whispers, and I'd heard, people say that my name was mentioned here or mentioned there. But officially, we now have a public forum where we have Governor Hutchinson on record worried about what he calls media arm. He also called it mission media, I think, or media with a mission. Governor Hutchinson at the Political Animals Club, quote, this is built up for some time. We saw this a few years ago, and we've seen it as the continued operations, and they are funding more into it and expanding media operations, talking about Conduit. And then he goes on, telling reporters yesterday, they are not media reporting. They are media with a mission, trying to control elections. Well, you be the judge. I don't care. Honestly, you be the judge. Folks, I present factual information about what he's done. I present truthful information about what's going on in Arkansas politics, and I don't care. You take it or leave it. You can agree with Asa, or you can agree with me. It is what it is. He can say that I'm not reporting the facts, or he can say that we're not reporting, that we're media with a mission. He's exactly right, by the way. I am on a mission to measurably reduce the size of government in Arkansas, to stop government corruption. That is my mission. And I think that's what you guys want as well. That's not what he wants, though. I'm being honest with you. I'm telling you, I believe in the Constitution. I believe in limited government, right? I believe in economic freedom. I think it's a prerequisite for other freedoms. I believe that health care is not a right. Does he believe health care is not a right? Does he believe that we are enslaved to each other's health care costs from birth? See, this is what I believe, and I'm telling you that, and I'm honest, and that's the frame of reference that I interpret the events of the day. The news, meaning what is new. That's where the word news comes from, by the way. What's new today, right? That's how I interpret the facts. And if he wants the mainstream media, and he wants to act like they're actually reporting, no, they have an agenda too, and it just happens to be ACEs. And I'm sorry that there is a media outlet that's reporting in a style that you don't like. But guess what, Governor? Every other media outlet does essentially what you want them to, because you have access, right? They get access. They're on the grounds of the Marble Palace. It's the court media. The court media. They are of the court, of the kingdom. I don't know what possessed Asa to come out, and I'm going to get to the Gazette article because they have his extended comments when we come back. I don't know what possessed Asa to come out and attack Conduit yesterday. I really don't. And he's saying that we're trying to control elections or we're trying to control legislators. I mean, yeah, how'd that work out in Senate District 16? Your candidate, Breanne Davis, won because she was funded by the monolith, the Marble Palace monolith. How's that working out for us? I mean, it really doesn't make any sense. But if you compare what he did yesterday at the Political Animals Club and you compare that with this robocall or this survey call that was sent to us by a listener of this program, I'm thinking, are they really confused right now? Well, I don't know. Are they very worried? I just think it's a indication of some extreme uncertainty in the Hutchinson campaign. We got to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment.
Do you need conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get
Nephewed. Hi, I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of uncle, nephew, and nephew are legal. Trust me, put the nephews on them.
It came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you. Uncle, nephew, and nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions. Put the nephews on them.
PHP Parody.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, folks, welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us. We do appreciate it very, very much. The phone number, 870-275-9799. You can also sound off facebook.com/Conduit News. It's facebook.com/Conduit News. let's go with... Yeah, we got Dan on Facebook saying, your mission is our mission. Let's go over here. We'll have to stretch this article into the next segment. But listen to this. Michael Wickline, Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Governor criticizes work of special interest group. This is unbelievable to me. Special interest group. What is that special interest, by the way? It is more freedom, more liberty, less dependency on government, less taxes, less regulations. That's a special interest for everybody, not for a select group, not for carve-outs, for everyone. Governor Asa Hutchinson, Michael Wickline writes, on Tuesday warned that the agenda of the Fayetteville-based group co-founded by businessman Joe Maynard and attorney Brenda Vassar-Taylor would limit growth in the state and shut down state government. Now, these are comments that have already been mimicked earlier last week by the Benedict Arnolds of senators. Senator John Cooper of Northeast Arkansas wrote a letter talking about government shutdowns and everything else, which actually was rebutted by State Representative Dan Sullivan yesterday. We're going to get to all that. Don't worry. Don't worry. I've been very preoccupied with what's been going on in special elections, but you just hang tight. We're going to get to that. I've had people text me. Did you see? Yes, I saw. So this is Governor Hutchinson's criticism, warned that the agenda of Conduit's going to shut down the growth of the state. Now, what does he mean by that? Does he mean our opposition to Chinese businesses, communist Chinese businesses coming in here that don't create any jobs, that only just steal existing jobs and existing employees from existing Arkansas businesses? Is that what he's talking about? Where does Asa get his Chinese connections, by the way? Does anyone wonder that? By the way, the FBI director, Christopher Wray, testified that we don't even need to be downloading Chinese apps. Did you heard about this? We need to be very careful about the apps we download because we have China spying on us. Did you know that? Well, we need their textile. We need more companies from the Shandong province. During the past few election cycles, Vassar-Taylor and Maynard, Michael Wickline writes, have backed candidates opposed to Arkansas's version of Medicaid expansion, which is now known as Arkansas Works, under Hutchinson. The program provides health insurance coverage to about 285,000 low-income Arkansans. The state will pay 6% of the cost of the program this year, 7% next year, 10% in 2020. Speaking before about 150 people attending the Political Animals Club luncheon in Little Rock, Hutchinson said, quote, I want to assure you that I'm trying to stay out of the legislative races because I actually have a primary race and a general election race myself. But at the same time, as I try to stay out of legislative races, I do have an interest in having legislators elected to office who are principled, who will listen, and who are not controlled by a particular interest group. Wow. What a hypocrite. What a hypocrite. Politicians are controlled by the Little Rock monolith lobby, these Marble Palace court members. And Asa has the nerve to say he wants them principled, but who will listen. Listen to him.
And that's exactly why we launched this investigation, why Governor Hutchinson is going to be calling for a special session on PBMs following the fiscal session to address this issue through the legislature and hopefully get PBMs regulated. It looks like they're looking at having PBMs regulated through the insurance department. But when it comes to transparency, I mean, these contracts, as you noted, Paul, they're out there in outer space, and we can't have access to them. So we're going to gain access to them, see if they are, in fact, giving terrible reimbursement rates to our local pharmacists and others, while at the same time giving much better reimbursement rates to their own CVS pharmacies or others, and they're essentially picking winners and losers.
Yeah.
Another very concerning aspect that I've heard as I've been out talking to pharmacists, to Arkansans, has been that individuals are receiving phone calls from these direct mail pharmacies and saying, well, we see that you have this prescription running out. Would you like to have this prescription filled? We can send it to you. And sending them say a 60-day supply of something. How do they even have access?
Yeah.
How does this direct mail pharmacy even have access to someone's personal health records? How do they even have access to know what medicines they do and do not have? And so my concern is that the proper firewalls are not in place, that they should be, because when I go to my doctor, I expect that conversation to be between me and my doctor and the staff at the doctor's office, and then between the pharmacy, that somebody from another pharmacy, a direct mail pharmacy, should not have access to what medicines I take and how much I need. But these firewalls do not appear to be in place. And so CVS not only has a prescription benefit or a pharmacy benefits manager, so there's three parts of it. CVS has a pharmacy benefits manager known as CVS Caremark. They have the CVS pharmacies, and they have the CVS direct mail pharmacy. And too many people are getting phone calls from direct mail pharmacy saying, you need to use us instead of your local pharmacy.
Yeah, that's
we can send it right to your door so you don't have to get out. But I'm concerned about the privacy of Arkansans healthcare and the access of others using it just as a commodity so they can make millions and billions of dollars. That PBM, pharmacy benefit managers, are in the top 25 Fortune 500 companies. They're in the three of those.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back, folks. Thanks so much for being with us. Wow. Text here, Ace is part of the D.C. Swamp. That's where he learned his politics. Swamp to the max. That's on Facebook. That's Dean. Facebook.com/Conduit News. So here is what Governor Asa Hutchinson said yesterday at the Political Animals Club. Very, very odd remarks. He wanted to warn the political animals of Little Rock of a special interest group because I guess Little Rock doesn't have any of those. This is a new thing. Quote, right now, our state has a special interest group in northwest Arkansas that is controlled by one person who is using various conduits, including a media arm, to pump tens of thousands of dollars in order to control legislators. This is not good for our state or for the body politic. Translation, I am an establishment Republican. Do not challenge me. I am set in my ways. I am King Asa. And I am the one who will control what is done and what is thought. He goes on, warning us of this special interest group, because again, I guess Little Rock doesn't have any of those. Their goal is to push a narrow agenda of isolating our state, limiting its growth, and shutting down government. So you can expect me to be engaged in that political fight as needed, because we don't need our legislators controlled by anyone except for the people of their district. Hutchinson said this according to Wickline, which drew applause. What a bunch of carefully crafted... That's actually just straight up misleading. That's not even carefully crafted. That's just misleading. Asa Hutchinson doesn't want legislators influenced by the people of their district. He doesn't. Well, unless they're Democrats. If they're Democrats, Asa would want the Republicans to be influenced by them. But Asa doesn't want actual Republicans influencing what their elected officials would do, because actual Republicans would go against Asa Hutchinson's agenda of higher spending and higher taxes and more regulations. Wow. Can you believe the governor decides? I mean, why does he mentions the media arm, controlled by one who's running various conduits, including a media arm. Huh. I've never been called an arm before, but there's a first time for everything. Notice that he says to pump tens of thousands of dollars. Asa, you know as well as I know that the amount of money we're talking about here is chump change to Little Rock. Let's just take Senate District 16, where Bob Bailey was unsuccessful last night because the Democrats George Soros the election. We're talking about $30,000 of hard-earned money to give a candidate a chance versus $150,000 that is chump change to Little Rock. That is nothing. That's no money to you guys, and you know it, and I know it. Tens of thousands of dollars. You're no better than Barack Obama when he tries to conflate millionaires and billionaires and tries to equate the two. Well, millionaires and billionaires are not paying their fair share. You're no better than that. Tens of thousands of dollars. My goodness. Carefully crafted language. I mean, when you want power, you'll do anything, right? When you want to retain power, you'll do anything. Anything. By the way, I want to remind you that Rusty Milton Cranford, Arkansas lobbyist, tied in with the good old boy system. According to the court documents, FBI has a recorded conversation of him trying to murder someone in New Jersey that was going to testify against him. He tried to hire a felon to go and murder a New Jersey lobbyist. Arkansas lobbyist tries to murder a New Jersey lobbyist because he was going to testify against him. Everything's fine in Arkansas, though. Everything's fine. Don't worry about that news that broke yesterday. I don't know. Did he even address that at the Political Animals Club? Maybe that's not what the animals wanted to hear. Yeah, maybe that's not what they wanted to hear. The place is a zoo, though. Their goal is to push a narrow agenda of isolating our state. Afterwards, Hutchinson campaign spokesman Jamie Barker said Hutchinson was referring to Maynard when he referred to a group controlled by one person. In response, Brenda Vassar-Taylor said in a written statement, quote, "We try to educate voters with provable facts as to the agendas and votes and outcomes of the Little Rock establishment. We hope the voters go to the polls educated, understanding who is involved in these races and what their end game may be, and what they are seeking in return. We seek freedom for small business in Arkansas. Our organizations seek freedom from excess government control in all areas. Our only benefit personally is to see Arkansas a better place to live for future generations. We spend money to do this. We are not paid money to do this," Vassar-Taylor said. Goes on, quote, "The political establishment in Little Rock has outspent our candidate in Senate District 16 at least 4 times, she said, referring to Tuesday's runoff election between Hutchinson-backed Breann Davis and Bob Bailey, who was backed by Maynard and Vassar-Taylor. Of course, Bob lost yesterday. Almost 7,700 people turned out to vote, many of them Democrats. The article goes on. Barker provided a copy of a video recording of Maynard and Vassar-Taylor's comments before a meeting of the Pope County Republican Committee in which they were questioned about campaign contributions. Quote, "As far as money goes, the money that goes into politics always gets a return on it," Maynard said in the video. We played this for you, by the way. "We know these people. We know who they give to, and we know what they want for giving it. We have watched them for years. It's public record. This money comes from right here, pal, right here. I don't want a thing for it," end quote. But Vassar-Taylor said the video left out parts of their remarks. Asked what prompted his criticism of the group, Hutchinson told reporters, it's just an observation that they are engaging. It's just an observation that they are engaged, and it is just not a matter of engage. They want, listen to this, Hutchinson, Asa, they want to control, and they say, well, the legislature is influenced by the governor. Well, they are trying to control legislators, and they are pumping money, but also media-controlled operations that are simply attempts to direct legislators and what they think and the public. What kind of statement is that? How unhinged is Asa? This is where you didn't run this by the Carefully Crafted Language Bureau. This is weird stuff. I don't know what was up with Asa yesterday, but this is strange stuff to do this. I mean, you're attacking Conduit News Radio without saying it. Media-controlled operations are what you perceive to be that. They're trying to control legislators. Asa, you control legislators, sir. Sir, are you delusional or are you intentionally deceiving people? Both are unacceptable. You are the one that controls legislature. None of us have nephews in the state Senate. You have nephews in the state Senate, okay? None of us are trying to control the legislative branch and blur the lines between the separation of powers. You are trying to do that, sir. You act like a special interest for liberty is the only special interest, that somehow you've coined the phrase, when you and I both know that you are for special interests. You are funded by special interests, but the ones that are not for freedom for everybody, the ones who only want to use government to benefit themselves, that's who you are for, and that's who you are protecting. Now listen, I have openly said that since this program is now on in Little Rock, yes, we are inside the bubble, and there is a psychological component to that, and maybe that's what's kind of, I don't know, brought Governor Hutchinson to the breaking point, because there's somebody on in his neck of the woods that is openly disagreeing with him. I mean, we have said that this is a psychological war in a sense, that now all of a sudden there's another voice in Little Rock that actually goes against the talking points and the email chains that you get when you get told, well, how am I going to sell this as a conservative solution when I think it's a tax increase? Well, now you have somebody on saying, you know, you guys have got to start actually implementing the reforms that people are voting on. And maybe there's pushback. Maybe the legislature has been emboldened behind closed doors because they know that there are reinforcements here. There are people that want to be led out of liberalism and progressivism. There are people that want real reforms. We're tired of having our government systems being run in the shadow of Bill Clinton, okay, that propelled him to arguably the most powerful political family in the world. We would like to reform some of that. We want to actually have things like performance-based budgeting, activities-based costing for these state agencies. We want real tax relief. We want to eliminate the corporate tax in Arkansas, making Arkansas attractive for all businesses, not just the Chinese ones you want to sell Arkansas to. I mean, this is not complicated stuff here. But it may go against the relationships that you've made over your political career, the ones that you're indebted to. Any politician that's been in the game as long as Asa is indebted to special interests, like seriously indebted to them, right? You can ask people about, you know, look, if you back someone based on their principles, we've said this before, you allow them to go vote their principles. And we're not going to agree on everything, but I mean, if you just are not beholden to the Little Rock monolith and the Marble Palace court, then you're good. But if you are, the second you cave every single time. And some of the best legislators we have actually have real jobs to go home to, by the way. That's another thing. The ones who don't actually need the job, so they can look and say, yeah, I'm not going to vote the way you want me to because it's the wrong thing to do. And plus, I don't need this job. I've got one back home. I'm just going to do what's right by the people. See, that would be what Asa Hutchinson would call a legislator who just doesn't listen. He just doesn't listen. They want to control, and they say, well, the legislature, this is Asa, quote, they want to control, and they say, well, the legislature is influenced by the governor. Well, they are trying to control legislators, and they are pumping money, but also media-controlled operations that are simply attempts to direct legislators and what they think and the public. So what? That's what everybody is trying to do. This is an arena of ideas, sir. This is an arena of ideas. I'm sorry if what we are saying and the ideas we are putting forth and the facts of you have increased spending, sir. $133 million your first year, $140 the next, $160, and this year $170. I'm sorry if those are unpopular facts. I disagree with you. I think you're spending too much money, and I think it's because you refused to lead us out of Medicaid expansion. I think it's weird that you call yourself a Republican. We've ended the individual mandate, and you're still trying to give Blue Cross Blue Shield a $2 billion windfall every year. I think it's weird that it's a socialist health care program that you always said you opposed, but you're trying to keep it from a socialist president. I think that's weird. I think that brand of republicanism would go down in flames in any other southern state, sir, that's controlled by Republicans. I mean, and then he goes on to say, I believe that there's a change in the demographics in Northwest Arkansas, and it's going to require a greater investment of people and get out the vote efforts on the Republican side to make sure that that it's a strength maintained in Northwest Arkansas. Now, he is right about that because the Democrats are going to participate in Republican primaries, just like they did last night in Senate District 16. The Democrats, along with Asa and the mainstream media, George Soros'd the election last night for Senate District 16. And I don't know I don't know the total number of Democrats that voted, but we will know. Eventually, we will know. And I think that's going to be very, very telling. The last thing I want to say is this, because I think this is the biggest. Go back up to the top of this article, Joe. This is Asa saying. He says he's going to stay out of legislative races, but he's essentially using Conduit as an excuse that he's going to get involved. Quote, but at the same time, as I try to stay out of legislative races, I do have an interest in having legislators elected to office who are principled, who will listen, and who are not controlled by a particular interest group. Is that not the biggest bunch of baloney you ever heard? I don't understand. How do you, is it just me or legislators who are principled and legislators who will listen? Does that kind of seem like contradictory to you? It seems contradictory to me. I want legislators who are principled and also who will listen. What do you mean, listen to you? Or listen to their principles? You see, your principles, I mean, if you have limited government principles, most of the time, you're going to disagree with Asa Hutchinson. This man created a cradle-to-grave tire tracking system because we have to be saved from Zika. And he increased your taxes on tires to do it and created a new tax on tires to do it. Yeah, I just wish you would have listened to me, though. I know you're not for tax increases, but I just, you should have listened. How can you be principled and also listen? You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, you can obviously listen to what the governor's proposing, but at some point, if they're limited government principles, you're going to say, I just feel like he's being such a hypocrite here, and who are not controlled by a particular interest group. So is Asa saying, and this is a good question, is Asa saying he just doesn't want someone sold out to a particular interest group, but he's okay with you just taking money from all of them? I mean, it's like Jim Gordon in Gotham City, The other officers, Eckhart, they kind of got nervous at Jim Gordon. They're like, other cops get nervous because you're not getting a bite. You're not taking any action. You're too honest. You're too honest. We need you to take all this money. We need you to take the money from the Marble Palace and the lobbyists at court with King Asa. I tell you, I can't believe this. This is weird. This is a very, very strange article. It's a very strange article. And if you I want to go to the audio again. If you compare this, compare this article from yesterday, Asa Hutchinson going to the Political Animals Club and criticizing Conduit. And then this call that went out, a listener sent this to me. They got this call. Listen.
Is that, none of this has happened, and he's been in office this whole time, and none of this has happened, so why him saying it would make me vote for him again?
Governor Hutchinson worked to reform Medicaid expansion in Arkansas and recently worked with the Trump administration to implement work requirements for the folks to receive insurance as part of the Medicaid expansion. Would that make you more or less likely or no different to vote?
No different, because he didn't reform Medicaid expansion, he changed the name.
Since being elected governor, the state of Arkansas has seen over 60,000 new jobs created. Would that make you more or less likely or no different?
No different, because we would vote for Asa Hutchinson on a dare.
I'm going to read you a few statements. If you knew the statement to be true, tell me whether it would make you more or less likely to vote for Jan Morgan. Jan Morgan banned anyone who is a Muslim from her gun range in Hot Springs.
What is this? Oh my gosh!
This is the Republican Party survey trying to make sure that Asa Hutchinson sounds good in a survey.
All right, stop. So they go on. We got to go to break here, but folks, they go on and they end up asking, which local talk radio host do you listen to? Now, why in the world is Asa Hutchinson spending money asking which local talk radio host do you listen to? This is Conduit News Radio. I'm Paul Harrell. Back in a minute.
Our nation's motto, "In God We Trust," first appeared in 1864. Secretary of Treasury Chase stated that no nation can be strong except in the strength of God, or safe except in His defense. And the trust of our people in God should be declared on our nation's coins. President Dwight Eisenhower then adopted "In God We Trust" as our nation's official motto in 1956. Act 911, enacted by the 2017 Arkansas General Assembly, states that if funds are available, durable framed copies of our nation's motto, "In God We Trust," shall be placed in public school classrooms, libraries, or any publicly maintained facilities. Posters may be donated or provided through voluntary contributions. If you're interested, please contact me at 870-275-2929. This is Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yeah, now, so that was Michael Wickline's piece. Talk Business and Politics. Talk Business and Politics has a slightly different take. They seem to be very concerned with political action committees. Talk business and politics, and sometimes they're a good resource. There's no doubt. But Talk Business and Politics, if you go look at the ads on Talk Business and Politics, it's a lot of government money, a lot of government ads that are on there. So that's interesting. But I will just tell you, this is a freedom of speech issue. This is a freedom of association issue, and Asa is now moving to try to silence people that disagree with him, and he's going to do it in the media. That's my prediction. That's what they have to do. The Talk Business piece on this is very concerned with PACs, but it's funny, they don't care. They don't care anything about Michael Morton PACs. They don't care anything about Bruce Hawkins PACs, right? They don't care about nursing homes. They don't care about those PACs. They only care about the person or the PACs that are going to upset the system, because that's the only way you can do it. You have to have PACs to compete in Arkansas now because of John Woods. John Woods changed, and small businesses can no longer give directly to candidates. Small businesses used to could give to candidates, but they claimed that was unethical. And then they try to say, well, Walmart's got to go. Walmart doesn't give money to candidates. Walmart has always used PACs. What mom and pop shop knows a political action committee to give money to participate in our elections? Now, the only thing John Woods' ethics amendment, by the way, Senator John Woods on trial for public corruption and coming up in April, the only thing it did was Johnny sweep the legs local mom and pop businesses who now can no longer give money to their candidate of choice. It actually hurts local involvement in elections, local say-so in elections, is what their little ethics amendment did, aside from extend term limits and raise politician salaries. No, there's no outrage. No outrage about managed care political action committees, health care political action committees, Centene. No outrage on nursing home political action committees. No outrage on any of that. There's only outrage on those who are not wanting anything in return for their money because they're not dirty. And if you're not dirty and you don't want something in return for your money that's specific to you, it makes them nervous. Speaking of nervous, Rusty Cranford, Arkansas lobbyist, tried to hire a guy to kill a New Jersey lobbyist. I'm sure we'll have more on that story tomorrow. In the meantime, Arkansas, thank you so much for listening to this program. Hope you have a great morning. My name's Paul Harrell. This is Conduit News Radio. Find out more at conduitnews.com or facebook.com/conduitnews. Arkansas, be safe.